working to connect a region of over 600 new bridges between our lands.
Hello and welcome to ASEAN in Focus. I'm Alma Angeles, and let's start off in the Philippines. President Duterte revealed that plans to slowly ease the country's lockdown in place since the middle of March to contain the coronavirus outbreak may soon ease. Take a look.
Siguro, wala naman akong malapit na. Yung iba naka-lockdown pa rin. Tayo, we might open partially, construction workers and things like that. You wait for lalabas na yung modified ang natin, quarantine. So we will allow sectors of society that are di talaga nagdidikit-dikitan. Problema nito kaya modified muna eh. Kasi kung magsiksikan kayo dyan sa LRT na naman, wala nang katapusan ang problema natin. It will never end. And it will bring us down and down. I'm happy to report that the Philippines has maintained its credit rating of BBB+. Hanggang ngayon, yung iba nagbagsakan na. And because, alam mo bakit? Kasi naniwala kayo, yung iba kasi late nag-lockdown, yung iba kung ano pa, tayo sunod kaagad sa batas, pagsabi gawain to, tapos ang mga trabahante ng gobyerno, for the time na wala pang lockdown, mahusay. They were really working. And let us not forget the government and to mga cabinet members, they are working, and the military and the police.
A technical working group of the Interagency Task Force for the Management of Emerging Infectious Diseases has submitted its final report on the responsive and sustainable recovery plan of the government to address the impact of the COVID-19 on the Philippine economy. Now, according to President Duterte's fifth weekly report submitted to Congress on Monday, the IATF-EID's Technical Working Group on Anticipatory and Forward Planning outlined three phases of the government's response against the COVID-19 threat, namely response mitigation and transition to the new normal. President Duterte said the response phase focuses on strengthening the health system by increasing the number of COVID-19 testing, contact tracing, quarantine facilities, hospital beds, and medical equipment to curb the transmission of the virus. The president also noted that the transition to the new normal phase directly responds to the comments of some senators to engage a whole-of-government approach in formulating programs under the new normal scenario. The last phase also requires the government to provide an economic risk assessment plan and to study the possible resumption of high-value sectors with a low risk of spreading the virus. President Duterte has ordered concerned government agencies to speed up the delivery of medicines and medical supplies for patients infected with the coronavirus disease. In a televised public address, President Duterte urged agencies to force medicines and medical supplies through Peace Advisor Secretary Carlito Galvez, the chief implementer of the national policy against COVID-19. Let's listen in.
Ang utos ko ngayon is i-deliver ninyo yung medicines kay General Galvez, Secretary Galvez, sa kanya. Huwag na sa City Health because City Health has no manpower to attend to all of these things. Ito naman kasi sa Galvez, he can distribute the burden to the different participating government agencies. And for one, gusto kong madalian So i-deliver ninyo ito if it's intended for the provinces outside of Metro Manila. Yung malayo, it's being ferried by plane. Yung malapit lang, of course, by land. Pero gusto ko na dumating sa madaling panahon. And to this end, I have requested na yung para sa mga malalayo na lugar, i-deliver na lang ng Air Force doon sa TOG at kunin sa TOG yung mga beneficiaries or recipient if they are near. But if it is intended for a place that's too far away and not easily possible, then we can use the military helicopters, but with one condition, that on the ground there are troops that will secure the crew and the equipment itself. Mahal yung helicopter ko at sayang. Let us not be reckless about this.
Last March 31, the President ordered that donated medicines and medical supplies for COVID-19 shall be coordinated with and transmitted to the Office of Civil Defense, or OCD, for consolidation. Under that order, the OCD is directed to prepare an inventory of all the donations to the national government and to the DOH that would be consolidated. The OCD will also coordinate with concerned government agencies to determine the beneficiary health facilities, groups, or establishments in the country. General Galvez is in charge of overseeing the consolidation, management, inventory, recording, and distribution of these donations. Also, President Duterte on Monday night said he will never be ready for another round of peace talks with the Communist Party of the Philippines political wing, the National Democratic Front. In the same televised public address, President Duterte said he lost respect for the CCP since members of its armed wing, the New People's Army, or the NPA, continue to attack government troops amid the unilateral ceasefire brought about by the coronavirus disease pandemic in the country. Again, let's listen in.
Again, it is a sad thing to know that yung mga sundalo ko pinagpapatay while even doing the most honorable task of accompanying the government workers delivering money and the food. I'm so sad about this development, but there will always be a time for reckoning. There is no more peace talks to talk about. I am not, and I will never be ready for any round of talks. Kasi simply the NPA, the Communist Party of the Philippines, has no respect either for their spoken words or in their deeds of killing soldiers who are on humanitarian missions.
Earlier, the president said he might only be compelled to declare martial rule in the event that lawlessness of the communist guerrillas persists. On November 23, 2017, the president signed Proclamation 360 to formally scrap the peace negotiations with the NDF due to the series of attacks launched by communist rebels against government forces and civilians. The termination of peace talks was followed by the December 5, 2017 signing of Proclamation 374, branding the CPP-NPA as terror group because of the crimes they allegedly committed against the Filipino people, against humanity, and the law of the nations. The CPP-NPA has been tagged as a terrorist organization by the Philippines, the U.S., the European Union, and the United Kingdom, Australia, Canada, and New Zealand. ASEAN in Focus will be right back.
Maraming salamat po sa nurse na nag-asikaso sa amin ng anak ko kahit sobrang busy niya.
Hindi po ako iniwan ng doktor hanggang sa umayos ang pakiramdam ko. Salamat po talaga.
Thank you po sa nursing assistant na pumansin agad sa amin pagdating namin ng ospital.
Thank you so much po talaga sa lahat ng staff ng ospital, maging sa mga utility po, dahil gumaling po ako dahil sa kanila.
Ating pasalamatan at pangalagaan ang mga magigiting na health workers.
This program is presented by
SMC Infrastructure, building a better world.
Co-presented by Canrib Corporation, your ventilation and air conditioning specialist. Vita Herbs Philippines Green Coffee, masarap, mabango, at healthy pa. Kubert Industries Incorporated, Trading and Services, the cooling expert. In participation with Rain or Shine Elastomeric Waterproofing Paint, color for protection for your home. Matimco. Matimco is wood. Wood is Matimco. R Square Variables Incorporated, your trusted UPS supplier and UPS maintenance provider in Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao. CompuZell Computer Services, ID card and lanyard manufacturer, DN Steel, EMAC UPVC Roof Corporation.
Skyway Stages 1 and 2, the elevated toll road system project, run from a section of the South Luzon Expressway from Alabang to Magallanes, Makati. The Skyway Stage 3 is an elevated expressway connecting the South Luzon Expressway through the existing Skyway Stages 1 and 2 to the North Luzon Expressway via Balintawak. Skyway Stage 4 is an 80-kilometer mixed elevated and at-grade toll road that will connect the existing Skyway system starting from the FTI section all the way to Bulacan.
All right, to the U.S. now, where coronavirus cases is now past 1 million. Don Orozco is joining us live. Hello, Don.
Before I actually went into any of my report, I would just like to say that I think the lockdown is working for you, Alma.
Really?
Yes, because you look like you've lost weight and you look like flawlessly beautiful.
Oh, my goodness. Okay, so what is the latest updates over there in the U.S.?
Well, let's talk about coronavirus COVID-19. And,
Okay.
Well, again, it has reached 967,000 cases for the whole U.S. And then 55,000 people are 107. The good news is 107,000 actually recovered from the virus.
Okay.
Now, let's go to my state, which is California. In California, we have about 43,700 that are tested positive, 1,723 are dead, and about 68,000 have recovered. So again, the good news has always been on the recovery side. Let us go to my area, which is the Bay Area, Silicon Valley. In the Bay Area, we have about 7,500 cases, 260 deaths. And then we are already on the 42nd day of the lockdown. And going into each county, Santa Clara County has about 2,000 cases. Santa Clara County consists of San Jose, Mountain View, Los Gatos, and then in Alameda, there is about almost 1,500. And the cities involved there are Fremont, Oakland, and Alameda. And then, of course, the city of San Francisco is also a county of San Francisco it's about 1,400 as well.
Okay, so, all right. So, I just saw in the news that there were large crowds along the beaches of the California coastline.
Correct. Because the governor actually is, they kind of, it is actually eased out on the rules on the lockdown. So people, because it's a pretty hot right now, it's about 80 degrees here. That's why a lot of people troop during the weekend to the beaches. But then, on the press con earlier by Governor Gavin Newsom, he said that he will go back to restricting because again, the problem is that they might contract coronavirus while in the beaches. So that's and then what the important announcement that was made today was that there will be an extension of the lockdown
in California.
So in California, and then it's actually like a case-to-case basis again, you know. So there are actually cities. There's already 6 counties in Southern California that is requesting to open because these 6 counties has only 4 cases and then only 1 dead. And then, like on our side, the 6 counties, which is Santa Clara County, Alameda, San Francisco, San Mateo, Sonoma, and Contra Costa, there's a lot of Filipinos there as well. You know? They are already looking at extending it. Some are May 15, the other is end of May. But there's already soft opening. And now, there's a new crime, modus operandi, being operated on by petty crimes. Ano? But this can be petty crimes, but it is considered a federal offense. Now, what are these? What happens is that, you know, people come in and then do some, a little bit of shoplifting. And then, on their way out, they cough a lot. Telling everyone, I have COVID-19. I am inflicted with coronavirus. So they sped out of the store like Walgreens and Target, and they get away with all the merchandise.
Okay.
So that's the new modus operandi that they're trying to employ here in Northern California.
Okay. So how is the police addressing this? How are the police authorities addressing this kind of?
They were already caught. You know, they were already caught. Those, but then they project that there will be a rise on incidents like that because again, nobody wants to go near a person who is coughing and pretending to be coughing. But then again, it is going to be considered a federal offense.
Okay. So what about, let's go to sports. Any word on the NFL or even the NBA?
Here in the U.S., we finally had something to watch that is real sports. No longer replaced, no longer something, it is a live NFL draft, yung National Football League.
Yeah.
And it is a record 55 million viewers during the 2-day NFL draft. So if you've heard of players like Tom Brady, you know, Gronkowski, so those are the known personalities there, you know. And there is a 35% increase. Say that again?
Was it a real game?
No, it's the draft.
Oh, the draft.
Meaning
yes.
they actually, they get players from the draft. And then on the NBA naman, there is now a softening on the rules. Actually, some teams have already started going back to their practice facilities. But on our side, we have the Golden State Warriors. They said, not now, because again, there is still a spike of cases here in one of the counties, which is covered by Alameda. So they are holding off the practice here in by the Golden State Warriors.
Yes, and we don't want another second wave of the infection to come in, right?
Correct. And before I go, a new policy has been implemented by Amazon. You know, there is also a spike of home deliveries now because again, everything is closed. So now Amazon has implemented the use of video conferencing technology to confirm orders. So before they deliver you the goods, they actually ask you to do a conference call with them using Zoom, using Skype, and some other video conferencing technology in order to ensure that the order is for you.
So,
and with that,
I just want to ask, didn't President Trump just announce an immigration ban on a few days ago? And how is this impacting?
Yes, there is a 60-day ban on immigration, and that's completely banned. No, so there's no processing of, even if you have approved green card already, so on and so forth. It is complete. The U.S. is completely shut down for the next 60 days, and the added feature of that is that it may be extended.
Oh my! So
But
how
we'll
is
see.
that? Yeah, how is that impacting Silicon Valley and its tech companies there?
Well, a lot of things have put into a stop. As a matter of fact, you'll be surprised. Stanford Hospital is giving furloughs already to their workers, to hospital workers, to their nurses, which is surprising because, again, we've just informed them that they are the new heroes, but now they are trying to furlough or cut their times and days, or maybe subject themselves to a 20% lesser on pay.
Oh my!
So it's very hard, really. Even hospitals are being affected by this COVID-19.
Not just tech companies. Yes.
Correct.
Thank you so much.
And that's the latest here. This is Don Orozco reporting live from Silicon Valley, reminding everyone to stay home and stay safe. And yes, we live in interesting times.
Thank you, Don. Now, despite COVID-19 crisis, foreign investors find Vietnam a promising market. And Vietnam will also welcome its residents home. Finally, that and more news from our EBC correspondent, Ralph Wandolph Empire. Hello, Ralph.
Hi there, Alma. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
That's right, Alma. According to Ministry of Planning and Investment's Foreign Investment Agency, or FIA, the total foreign investment inflows in Vietnam reached $12.33 billion in the first 4 months of this year. The 4-month period saw 984 new foreign invested projects licensed with a total registered capital of $6.78 billion, and the 335 existing projects were allowed to raise their investments by more than $3.7 billion. From January to April, foreign investors spent nearly $2 billion buying shares or contributing capital to Vietnamese firms. Foreign investors pledged to pour capital in 80 sectors, in which manufacturing and processing took the lead with nearly $6 billion, accounting for 48.4% of the total capital. It was followed by power production and distribution, wholesale and retail, and real estate, the FIA said. Now, the Singapore was the country's largest source of FDI, as the committed volume accounted for 41% or $5.7 billion. Thailand and Japan were the runners-up with $1.46 billion and $1.68 billion US dollars respectively, followed by mainland China, Taiwan, and South Korea. Now, regarding repatriation, the Civil Aviation Authority of Vietnam announced on April 21 that 13 flights would be scheduled to bring home Vietnamese citizens from Japan, the US, Canada, France, Russia, Spain, Singapore, Indonesia, the Philippines, Thailand, and the UAE. 3 flights have repatriated Vietnamese citizens stranded overseas, and 4 more are scheduled for the coming days. According to the Ho Chi Minh City Department of Health, the metropolis has not recorded new COVID-19 cases in the past 20 days. Now, to keep the epidemic under control, all passengers arriving at Tan Son Nhat International Airport from abroad have been required to take quick tests to detect suspected cases. They also need to fill out health declaration forms before being transported to a quarantine camp. The city currently has 22 quarantine facilities, and the Municipal Center for Disease Control is working with the local military command to prepare more venues. More than 10,000 beds in various quarantine facilities in the Mekong Delta are all set up and organized. With such preparations, Alma, the metropolis, is ready to receive a large number of arrivals from foreign countries. And by the way, only Vietnamese nationals and foreigners carrying diplomatic and official passports, such as business managers, experts, and high-skilled workers, are allowed to enter the country at this time. And all entrants will be quarantined for 14 days. And Alma, for the latest update about schools here in Vietnam, students in nearly 30 provinces and cities across Vietnam returned to school on Monday morning after a long break since early February. That was just yesterday. Most of the students are 9th and 12th graders who set to take the 2 key examinations for high school entrance and graduation in the next few months. Students in other grades are expected to return to school in the following weeks. In Hanoi, high school and secondary schools will return to school from May 4th, head of the city's People Committee, Nguyen Duc Chung, said yesterday. So far, the city has no specific plan for the primary schools and kindergarten, Vietnam Express, a local media, reported. And just to give an update, Alma, it's about the schools. Schools are asked to sterilize campuses, provide soap and antiseptic hand wash for students, and leave window open and minimize the use of air conditioners. In class, students wear face masks and keep a safe distance from each other. Alma?
Is the school only in Hanoi, or does it mean the whole of Vietnam, whole country?
It's actually the entire Vietnam,
Okay.
Alma.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much. And how is Vietnam looking right now?
Well, it's beautiful. It's quite warm today. Compared to the past few weeks, it has been cold. By the way, Alma, I forgot to share this update about the COVID-19 test kits from Vietnam.
Oh, okay.
As per the local media reported, the World Health Organization, or WHO, has approved the COVID-19 test kits, which have been jointly developed and produced by the Military Medical University and Viet A Corporation. On April 21, the COVID-19 test kits passed European standards and were granted the CE marking and certificate of free sale, allowing the test kits to be sold in the European Economic Area, including the UK. Now, each kit includes 50 separate tests, allowing for SARS-CoV-2 testing on up to 50 people, and is sold at 400 to 600,000 Vietnamese dong. That's equivalent to $17 to $25 per test.
Okay, so even though Vietnam has already loosened the restrictive measures, testing is still ongoing in various parts of the country. Yeah.
That's right, Alma. And also, people are still are mandated to wear face masks whenever we are going outside, especially in public places.
Okay, so measures are still in place, like social distancing and all that.
That's correct, Alma.
All right, thank you very much, Ralph, for your update, and we'll wait for more as we follow this developing story. Yeah.
Reporting live from Hanoi, Vietnam, this is Ralph Randolph, and we'll live in interesting times.
Okay, New Zealanders awoke to lessened lockdown measures as they are now on alert level 3. And let's find out how that is looking in New Zealand from Greg Bessa. Hello, Greg.
Hello, Alma. Good evening from New Zealand.
Good afternoon from Manila. Yes. Go ahead, Greg.
Yeah. As it was reported yesterday by Bea that New Zealand is gaining ground against COVID-19, the country has another single-digit number of cases today for the straight 10 days now. So during the press conference today, Director General of the Ministry of Health, Ashley Bloomfield, announced that there are only 2 confirmed cases and 1 probable case. So the total number of cases now in New Zealand is 1,472, of which 1,214, or more than 80%, have recovered. So far, the total number of death cases is 19, all of which are related to identified clusters. So as you mentioned, today, Tuesday, 28th of April, is the first day after the lockdown was lifted at midnight last night at 11:59 p.m. Though the Prime Minister is encouraging the people to continue staying at home unless for essential travels, they have now more freedom to move around. People are now allowed to leave their homes, to travel short distances in terms of doing exercises at parks or beaches, but should still observe the social distancing of 2 meters away from anyone who are not within what we call bubbles, or people who are not who they are not living with together. Going to swimming, surfing, and hunting while observing all safety measures. Going to work or school, doing shared caring arrangements, relocating a home or business, traveling for medical reasons and emergencies, and attending to court orders, traveling with exemption because of compassionate reasons, foreign nationals leaving New Zealand, and people arriving in New Zealand from overseas and returning home after 14 days of managed self-isolation at port of arrival. Today is also the start of rebuilding the New Zealand economy, as approximately 400,000 people reported to work. Other than the continuity of those doing essential services during lockdown, construction, forestry, and manufacturing industries are now allowed to operate, provided that they have safety measures in place. Restaurants, takeaway shops, and other retail outlets are also back to business, though limited to contactless transactions such as ordering by online or phone, delivering of orders through couriers or customers personally picking it up, including the drive-thru for KFC, McDonald's, and other takeaway shops. These businesses are still closed to do face-to-face transactions with customers. But for those who are able to continue working at home, the Prime Minister is encouraging them to do the same. Large gatherings are still not allowed. In terms of wedding and funeral ceremonies, attendees are limited up to 10 people only. The government will review the present alert level 3 after 2 weeks, and it will decide from there on whether the present alert level will be extended or be lowered down to alert level 2, which will further relax people-to-people interactions. Back to you, Alma.
So will companies still be encouraged to enforce work from home arrangements with this alert level 3 measure?
Yeah, it's the arrangement between the employers and the employee. But the Prime Minister is encouraging to do the work from home arrangement. But if employers are not able to do that because of the nature of their work, then they're allowed to report to their work.
So alert, when will they decide to go to alert level 2 and so on?
So after 2 weeks, so it's around May 11. So the government will decide. But because we're doing it, the government is doing it well in managing the COVID-19 infection rate, there's a possibility that we're going to alert level 2 by the decision will be on the 11th of May.
11th of May. And what would be their criteria in deciding to going to alert level 2?
Well, of course, as the number of cases now is decreasing, it's one of the criteria of the government. It should be always be a single-digit number of cases. And then, of course, the government also is doing its best to implement the contact tracing, efficient contact tracing, meaning to say, if one is being infected, so the government has the capability to trace those people whom that person being infected communicated and interacted with so that they can really monitor about the transmission rate within that area where the person being affected is identified.
All right, thank you very much, Greg, and let's hope that this continues until, well, it will not end, but at least until the lockdown measures are totally lifted. Thank you so much for your updates.
Thank you, Alma. Live reporting from Wellington City, New Zealand. This is Greg Besa. We live in interesting times.
Meanwhile, millions of Vietnamese have lost their jobs during the COVID-19 pandemic. Joining us live from Ho Chi Minh City, here's Chriselle Lacuna. Hello, Chriselle.
Hi, Alma. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Good to see you.
Okay. You too. Okay, so let's hear the latest from Vietnam. Firstly, to update our recent numbers of cases of coronavirus in Vietnam, it is still at 270 infected. 45 are still active and 225 were recovered from the disease. And so far, no fatality has been recorded. So let's go to our first headline. That is 5 million workers and 84.8% of companies affected by COVID-19 pandemic in Vietnam. The General Statistics Office of Vietnam said on Friday an estimated of 5 million workers and nearly 85% of companies in the country were negatively affected by the novel coronavirus disease pandemic in the first quarter of 2020. Of those affected, 59% are temporarily out of work, 28% are taking turns to work, and the remaining 13% have lost their jobs. Turbulence was observed in the Vietnamese labor market in quarter one of 2020. And the first 4 months of 2020, according to the Population of Labor Statistics Department under GSO. The employment rate plummeted to a 5-year low due to the impacts of COVID-19, which started in January. The 3 opening months of 2020 saw the average worker in Vietnam earns about 6.2 million, or equivalent to 264.7 US dollars monthly. That's the average wage here. The GSO report was compiled from the results of a survey on 131,000 businesses, as well as COVID-19 impact reports from 59 provinces and cities in Vietnam. It found that nearly 5 million wage earners in Vietnam had either lost their jobs or been furloughed because of the COVID-19 pandemic by mid-April. Among them, 1.2 million people were in the manufacturing and processing industry, 1.1 million worked in retail and commerce, and 740,000 were in hospitality. So, Alma, that resulted to 84.8% of the surveyed businesses said they are suffering due to COVID-19, and large and medium-sized companies were considered more vulnerable to the current pandemic than the small and very small businesses. 67% of the surveyed enterprises said they had resorted to layoffs, furloughs, and wage cuts to cope with the impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic. However, Vietnam recorded a GDP growth of 3.82% in quarter one of 2020, but still is the lowest in the decade. But we are happy that still a positive change, but because we all know Vietnam is growing its economy exponentially. So we recorded 3.8 growth of the GDP for the first quarter of 2020. Let's go to headline number 2. So in relation to our news yesterday about Vietnam opposing China's establishing of 2 districts in Sansha City, experts say that China's ploy to weaponize COVID-19 in the East Vietnam Sea gains unsuccessful. In Vietnam, the South China Sea is known as their East Sea, while in our counterpart in our country, it's the West Philippine Sea. Now we've seen publications also from Inquirer.net that For the whole world, it is to fight for the current pandemic, but it is business as usual for China. Singaporean analyst and researcher Colin Ko Swee Lin said that Beijing is simply exploiting ASEAN countries' preoccupation with the pandemic in the hope that its actions will provoke little or no reaction, thereby further strengthening its hold in the South China Sea. Now, Alma, just to summarize the timeline of events about this controversial issue about these islands, these are all from a publication of Toi Tre, or the Youth Journal of Vietnam. So last July 2019, the Hayang DG-8, it is a vessel. It first entered in Vietnam's exclusive economic zone in the southern area of the East Vietnam Sea and appeared to be conducting seismic and geological survey in there. And then from then on, they've been entering the area illegally, and they are operating. And on October 3, the Vietnamese Foreign Ministry announced that the group of ships had expanded their operation range and within Vietnam's exclusive economic zone and continental shelf. And then on April 2 this year, a Vietnamese fishing boat was sunk by a Chinese Coast Guard vessel near Vietnam's Hoang Sa, or Paracel Island archipelago. All of the fishermen on board were eventually rescued. And on April 19, Vietnam strongly denounced China's establishment of the so-called Sisha and Nansha districts and called on to reverse its wrongful decisions and respect Vietnam's sovereignty over the Paracel and Spratly Islands. Lin also said China's game plan is to continue to harass new oil and gas exploration and all fishing activities by its neighbors until it becomes too risky and expensive for Southeast Asian civilians and governments to do anything without China's approval. There is opportunity, however, for Vietnam, because Vietnam is this year's ASEAN chair, to build a consensus with ASEAN about how to respond to the growing US-China competition. That will be a major competition to the ASEAN. Alma?
So earlier we reported on the millions of jobs lost due to COVID-19. You also ended the social isolation guidelines at the end of April 22, though some restrictions, like other countries, are still in place, especially with high-risk areas. So how is the government addressing this millions of jobs lost due to the coronavirus?
So far, the majority of the businesses were reopened already. So we will expect a gradual normalization of the situation in here.
What about commercial and or international flights, international local flights? Has it been is it back already?
Not yet, but major airlines offered their flights already. However, they discourage the passengers to, when transiting to a third country, that not them to enter the country anymore because they may be subject to quarantine.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much, Chriselle, for all that update. And we'll see you soon. Stay safe, stay healthy. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. You too. From ABC Vietnam Bureau, this is Chriselle Yapuna. We'll live in interesting times.
Let's now go to Phuket, Thailand. They will lift the ban on some domestic flights. That and more news from our ABC Bureau there, Ian Celada. Hello, Ian.
Hi, Alma. How are you?
Good afternoon. I'm good. And how are you? What are your updates for us?
So here's updates.
Okay.
So we have here, so airlines set to return as ban on the domestic flight ends. So Air Asia and Nok Air are both set to resume domestic flights to Phuket on Friday, May 1, the day after the ban on all domestic flights is due to end. The move to relaunch services came before any clear resolution by the Phuket governor whether or not he intended to lift the Tambon lockdown, banning all the non-essential travel between the 17 sub-districts on the island. As of today, April 28, it has been confirmed And AirAsia is to initially provide 4 flights a week, Mondays, Wednesdays, Fridays, and Sundays. A customer service staffer at Nok Air told the Phuket News that Nok Air intends to operate daily flight regardless of the Tambon lockdown in effect in Phuket. Staff will also check in counters at international airport on the day flights resume service. In announcing the relaunch of domestic flight AirAsia, Thailand CEO
Okay, Ian, can you hear me?
after closely monitoring the pandemic situation.
Okay. So, Ian,
Yes, Anna.
regarding the airlines lifting the ban on the domestic flights, what are they going to do? How are they going to implement the new normal measures when resuming the flights?
Yes, yes, Alma. So, as in here, the airline will be observing strict health controls in compliance with the regulations set by the Ministry of Public Health and Civil Aviation Authority of Thailand. They include seat distancing on board, mask wearing throughout flights, and suspensions of food and beverage services. And also, AirAsia will also be
Yes, Ian, can you hear me?
Thank you very much.
All right, I think we're having a bad connection with Ian. We'll just try and get him later. Meanwhile, a proposed law on declaring a national emergency on the coronavirus in Cambodia has already been approved. We have more from Crystal Ann Ballesteros. Hello, Crystal Ann.
Hi, Alma. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
As of today, Cambodia's approach for COVID-19 positive cases continue for the 16 consecutive days with 0 new infections reported. At the same time, there was 0 reports of new recoveries, leaving the total number recovered at 119. However, Health Ministry spokesperson Or Bandin warned that the COVID-19 risk level for individual transmission is at an alarming rate in the kingdom, and it probably is not low. She said that Cambodia's coronavirus scenario is classified as being at an early stage of the pandemic because of ongoing transmissions worldwide. A second wave can occur at any instance. She warned that Cambodians were now throwing cautions to the wind and moving freely, going to the markets, malls, and restaurants with little social distancing. She urged the people to continue with good hygiene practices and said this should become the new normal. She also stressed that she see a risk of importation and local community transmission if people don't manage it well. She also don't think Cambodians are immune to COVID-19. People needs to be vigilant. The nation has to ensure that the outbreak risk in a highly vulnerable setting is minimized and workplace preventive measures are established. Meanwhile, the Constitutional Council of Cambodia unanimously approved the draft law on state of emergency, passing it to the final phase of becoming a law. The decision was made yesterday during the CCC's plenary session led by Council President Im Chun Lim, after draft had been fast-tracked for approval and unanimously adopted by the National Assembly and Senate over the past weeks. CCC Secretary General Tain Ratana said that all CCC 9 members voted in favor of the state of emergency draft law. He said the draft law will be forwarded to the Royal Palace for King Norodom Sihamuni's signature to make it become a law. King Sihamuni departed the kingdom early this month for medical checkups in Beijing, while Senate President Se Chum, who also becomes an acting head of state, is due to sign the law for a final approval. Alma?
Regarding the Cambodian emergency draft law, there have been concerns regarding this emergency law. Some are saying, or especially the human rights group, they're saying that this will give the Cambodian government sweeping powers to martial law to enforce an emergency and controlling the citizenry's or the population's online and offline activities. What is this is the concern there. What can you say about this? What is the citizenry saying, reacting to this? How are they reacting?
State of emergency law was already approved by the Constitutional Council of Cambodia yesterday, and just waiting for the king's signature for it to be official. Prime Minister's defense on his conferences, even before they were just planning about the law, that there is 0.01% chance that it would be enforced. The law is just for the kingdom to be ready once it is needed.
All right. Okay, so thank you so much for all that, Crystal. Stay safe, and we'll wait for more updates from Cambodia. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Alma. Reporting live here in Cambodia, I am Crystal Ann Ballesteros, and we live in interesting times.
Lockdown measures in Thailand will stay in place, but some businesses are already allowed to open if they meet certain conditions. We have a report coming in from Gila Pablo. Hello, Gila.
Hello, Alma. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon to you. Your updates for us, Gila?
Yes, Alma, here's a quick update. First, when it comes to producing favipiravir, an antiviral medicine. So according to the Government Pharmaceutical Organization, or GPO, they are working to make its own favipiravir, the antiviral medicine which has been touted as a treatment for COVID-19. The board for the state pharmaceutical manufacturer recently agreed to produce its own favipiravir to meet the demand for COVID-19 treatment here in Thailand, according to Dr. Micton, the chairman of the GPO board of directors. Alma, he told the media that it is very important to produce or create this kind of medicine during this time of crisis. And he also reported that pharmaceutical team is working hard to study the favipiravir formula to make it more efficient, and they are planning to produce it by next year. So just a quick trivia or information about favipiravir. It is an antiviral medication used to treat flu in Japan, and it is known for stopping viruses from duplicating or replicating, and it has been used to treat COVID-19. Alma, before they produce favipiravir, the agency or GPO will seek approval from the Thai Food and Drug Administration, or FAD, and Department of Medical Sciences. But according to Ms. Pichaya, a lecturer at the Faculty of Pharmacy in Mahidol University, favipiravir is not officially recognized as the main drug to fight against COVID-19. But she mentioned about the outstanding efficacy when it comes to helping treating coronavirus with less effects. And Ms. Pichaya said that the best way to control COVID-19 would be a vaccine. And you mentioned about the executive decree extension. So yes, Alma, based on the news from Bangkok Post today, CCSA extended the executive decree for another month, but allow some businesses to reopen, including shopping malls and hair salons. But of course, there are conditions that were imposed by the authorities, such as businesses' performance will be assessed every 14 days, and if an outbreak erupts, the business will be shut down immediately. General Prayut also agreed with the idea of allowing selected businesses to reopen countrywide, but by doing this, it will limit people from traveling far to other areas. Authorities here also said the rate of new infections would determine how fast the country switches back to lockdown mode. But for now, the curfew from 10 p.m. to 4 a.m., the prohibition on mass gatherings, restrictions on interprovincial travel, and strict controls on travel in Thailand, including the ban on all incoming flights, will be still in place for another month. And here's a quick official COVID-19 update here in Thailand as of Tuesday. There are additional 7 people infected, reaching the national total of 2,938 people. And there are additional 43 people discharged from the hospital, a total of 2,652, and additional 2 deaths, a total of 54 deaths. Back to you, Alma.
Thank you, Gila, for your update, and we'll see you soon. Thank you for your time. Much appreciated.
Thank you so much, Alma. Once again, reporting live from Bangkok, Thailand, this is Gila Pablo. We live in interesting times.
All right, that is all the time we have for you today. We'll get our correspondence later on Eagle News International. But for now, that is the latest news around the ASEAN region and other regions in the world. I'm Alma Angeles. We live in interesting times.